In order to properly frame this comparison, let's first talk about what I did to my car. I've added bigger brakes, a coilover suspension, and the matching wheels. I fixed the poor aerodynamics by adding fixed clear cover headlights with an aftermarket HID kit. I took out the bad seats and added Sparcos with harnesses. I even added a Sparco steering wheel and short throw shifter to complete my interior package. I've added a roll cage, a loud exhaust, and a host of engine upgrades that drastically increase the car's performance. But here's the question. Did GM do the same kind of things to their Corvettes that I was doing to mine? So to find that out, we grabbed this 2011 Corvette Grand Sport, also in torch red, and we're going to drive my modified car and this stock car back to back to find out if GM's improvements over the years align with my visions of what a better Corvette should be. That's what we're doing today in Malibu, right here on the Smoking Tire. In some ways, the Corvette has come a long way in 12 years. For instance, we now have the LS3 engine. My car had the LS1. This engine makes 436 horsepower and 424 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot more than my car made when it was new, although not as much as it makes now. They've also done a few other things. They've updated the interior. It finally has some real leather, although you can seriously see the resemblance to my car. Finally has a 3-spoke steering wheel, which is a start. It really does feel like the more grown-up version of my car. My car does have kind of a tuner car feel. It's a little bit boy racer, whereas this feels more like an adult's car. Feels like a kind of car you'd want to actually drive every day, whereas my car is more of a weekend canyon carver track car. They've also abandoned the leaf spring suspension, which my car came with. And they put bigger brakes on it too. The brakes on this car are about the same size as the aftermarket Stop-Tex on my car. But that's not all they've improved. They've added sound deadening, improved the paint quality, and installed a trunk mechanism that actually works. They've added bigger wheels, wider tires, and changed the car's stance with shorter overhangs to improve the overall balance. But not everything's changed. See that carbon fiber dash piece? Yeah, it's plastic. But how is the overall package? Well, going back and forth between the two, this car is way cushier. It's softer in the bumps. You can feel it moving around more on its suspension than my car. There's quite a bit more body roll through corners than my car has, although it's still very good. And the engine is quite a bit quieter. It's in stock trim. But it does have the optional 2-mode exhaust, and what that means is below 3,800 RPM, it's very quiet. You hear mostly engine noise and not exhaust noise. But then you downshift the gear and you wind it out. Listen to this. Right at that RPM, right about 3,800, the baffles go wide open and just make a phenomenal sound that I think may even sound better than a Z06 actually. It's an angry engine at high RPM. And even though the Camaro SS has the same engine, the exhaust and sound tuning of the car make it sound and feel so much livelier in this car. And I think a lot of it has to do with that 2-mode exhaust system. And people will say, well, you could get the Z06 for almost the same amount of money. This is a $70,000 car. But what you wouldn't get with the Z06 is something that I really value about my car, the removable roof. When you're in California, carving canyons, which is where I do most of my driving, being able to take the roof off is such a huge bonus. It makes the car feel so much more spacious. Love the fresh air thing. And you don't get that with the Z06 or the ZR1 for that matter. So if you're really about the ultimate performance, you got to go with one of those and a fixed roof. I really consider the Corvette a good platform in which you can improve yourself. I mean, there's so many parts available, there's so many ways to make your car your own that And this car does have some flaws. The seats, they still suck. The steering wheel, although they've finally gone with a 3-spoke design, the Cobalt and the Malibu, they all use the same wheel now. And for 70 grand, I want Alcantara, I want something to make this stand out. I mean, originally, my Corvette in 1998 went 171 miles an hour. Earlier this year, I did 194 in it. This car will go 195. Aerodynamics, tires, and things like that, I'm sure have a role in that as well, but this car does perform similar now to my car does modified. What we should do now is park this car, get back into my car, and see if my car feels antiquated or better than the new car. What do you say we do that? Not bad. I would say, other than horsepower, people ask me the most about my wheels. These things are killer. When I got bigger brakes, I had to get bigger wheels. And like I said, I'm not normally a big rim kind of guy. But the problem with Corvettes is all the aftermarket wheels for them are either ugly or everyone has them. And that's not how I roll. So I had my friend George at Proformance Wheels in New York actually make these for me. This is the only set in the world. Carbon fiber lip, which is really cool, 3-piece forged wheel, 19 by 10 in the front and 20 by 12 in the back. And they clear the brakes by about 2 millimeters, which is awesome. So if you want to check out how to get these for yourself, the Matt Farah limited edition wheel, George is going to be selling a few sets of these. They ain't cheap, but this is just about the best wheel money can buy, and they're right off my car. And they'll fit any car, which is awesome. But what's important is, how does my car drive after driving that? Anytime people ask me about a great used sports car, always the first thing I say is C5 Corvettes. Even one with low mileage like mine, in good condition, still only about 15,000 bucks. So that's a great starting point if you plan on modifying the car to your liking. Now, after driving the new car and getting back in this one, I really feel the difference. The things I've done to this car make it much, much sharper in these corners. Not to mention, how good does that sound? I mean, a stock exhaust is one thing, but this car was way too quiet from the factory, so I had to do something about that. A little bit of exhaust work, and what you get is this. Just an angry, screaming banshee of a car. It just makes me smile. My car is about 300 pounds lighter than the Grand Sport because, in part, the seats, took out the power seats, took out the airbags, I've got lighter wheels, I've got lighter brakes, and I save about 150 pounds total over that brand new car. It also doesn't have half the electronics that thing has. Everything I've changed in this car was for a reason. I didn't want an all-out horsepower monster. If I did, I would have saved the money and bought twin turbos and been done with it. 700 horsepower all day long. I wanted the ultimate driver's Corvette. Probably the most important two things I did are the coilover suspension from Fott Racing and the big brake kit from StopTech, which really, really improved the car's cornering. I mean, before this car was almost like driving a Cadillac. Now it feels like driving a race car. But I have the suspension set to street, so it does absorb a lot of the bumps. Also, the smaller steering wheel, it makes the steering more direct because my hands don't have to move as much to do the same thing. Same goes for the short shifter. Much, much more precise than the original. The stock Corvette came with pop-up headlights. The aerodynamics were terrible at night. It was like having a parachute on your front end. So I replaced them with the clear covers, and now aerodynamics at night, not a problem at all. And the wheels. When I got bigger brakes, I had to get bigger wheels. This car came with 17s in the front, 18s in the back. Now it's got 19s in the front and 20s in the back. I'm not really a big rim guy, but that's what I had to do in order to fit them over the giant brakes. And what happens with the seats and the harnesses is, whether you're on the street or the track, you find yourself with the seats holding you in place so you don't have to hang on to the wheel, and just let the seat keep you there, and all you have to do is turn the wheel, and it'll make you faster around the track and calmer on the street. You can't just bolt harnesses into a stock car. You need something that's on the chassis to brace it. So I've added this West Coast Corvette's half cage. It stiffens the chassis, adds an element of safety, and it's a grounding point to mount the harnesses to. Works very well, actually. And you immediately, as soon as I installed it, could feel the chassis was actually quite a bit stiffer. That's what it's about right there, though. This engine is just dialed in so nicely. It is just an absolute animal. Even though it's a stock bottom end LS1, still makes 421 horsepower at the wheels. And I will never ever sell it, ever, ever, ever. Has GM done a better job over the last 12 years, or have I? Well, it depends on your perspective. The thing about the Corvette is it can be a daily driver. And if what you want is a daily driver, you're probably better off with a new Corvette. Lots more creature comforts, comfortable seats, things like that. But I drive my Corvette hard on the weekends only. And for me, a tuned Corvette that's built exactly to my liking is a better option. It's also, quite frankly, a lot less expensive. So if you've got the money and you want an everyday car, the Grand Sport is a good option. Or if you want a value car that you can customize to your liking, a used C5 is absolutely the way to go. Either way, on this Labor Day in Malibu, you can't do much better than two red Corvettes. I'm Matt Farah. You've been watching The Smoking Tire. See you guys next week.